Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's Marcy again from wavesofcommunication.com with another episode of Language Facilitation Q&A. And today's topic came from my Language Facilitation Resources group over on Facebook, where I have more than 1,500 members now. Thank you so much for everybody who has joined me over there. And if you haven't, this is a great opportunity for you to go over there on Facebook. The group is called Language Facilitation Resources for Parents, and I post every single day tips, ideas, resource links, all kinds of great information for you as parents, grandparents, caregivers, daycare providers, whoever who works with or has late talking kids in your life. That's what the resources I provide are for all of you who are watching these videos. So today's topic, like I said, came from the group. And if you haven't met me before, if this is the very first time you're watching me on a video, welcome so much. If you have your own question, I do live Q&A as part of these videos. So go ahead and put your question in the comments. While we're waiting for some more people to join us, we'll collect those questions, and I'm going to get started talking about today's topic, which is working older children. So many late talkers, or people think that, we classify the late talking category, which late talking, by the way, means every child who's not talking yet. And I believe there is no age limit to being able to start to natural spoken language, because all kids have capability to learn it. They just have blockages in the way of the natural spoken language learning process that is part of all of our anatomy, part of all of us as kids, as humans. We have this ability to use spoken language, and older late talkers past age 3 or 4, certainly past age 5, when they get out of that toddler age and into some pre-kindergarten and kindergarten learning kinds of situations. This is when the situation, I keep using that word situation because the circumstances, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, are changing for kids. When they get to be preschool and school age, and the expectations of the world are for them to start learning independent skills that they can use later in life, such as academics and the household things, the responsibilities, cleaning up after themselves, going to the bathroom, all of these things by 5 years old should be starting to be already independently going. In fact, they are in most children. However, kids who are late in developing walking or talking or other kinds of skills that are fundamental for these independent learning and doing skills, following things, these skills that are fundamental, if they are late in coming, then those other skills will be late in emerging. It just makes sense because we can't do skills that we don't have foundational abilities for. And children who are not using talking to communicate are using talking kinds of communications, and they're stuck in these pre-verbal communication situations. Now, this is what happens, and it's true that once children get to be past 5 years old, not only are the expectations of the outside world on them, but the expectations of the parents also become changing, and the worry really starts to kick in, because this is the stage when children are easily compared to other children, and they're joining groups, learning, they're going to schools, they're being evaluated. And now pretty much all over the world by this time, Most children are expected, especially in the age of technology, to know how to recognize letters and numbers and colors and shapes. They're usually independently even taking care of their own needs, like going to the bathroom and bathing themselves and getting themselves dressed. And if your late talker, again, is behind in these other skills, it's likely because these fundamental language or fine motor, gross motor skills haven't been developed yet. And if your child's motor skills are great and they're not doing these things on their own, that means that something's held up in their ability to learn the process of how to do it. Now, with communication, when we're talking about communication here, older late children have one big advantage when we're talking about starting from today. Now, we can talk about how it got to this point all day, but it doesn't really matter. What really matters is what's going on today with you and your late talking child, and understanding how to move forward in a way that will get them unstuck from these patterns that are going in. And the great thing, there's one massive positive about late talking kids and one massive negative. And the massive positive is that they have been hearing you, as long as their ears have been working, they have been hearing people talking to them their whole lives. They've been hearing language on video. They've been hearing people on phones all over. They've been hearing language spoken to them. So they likely have, past 5 years old for sure, memorized a lot of words that they know are related to the things that they see on the videos or they see in their life every day. If you say mommy a lot or people call you mommy, they know that you are mommy. They understand the word mommy or mom or mama or whatever they you means you. They learn that real early. And as they get older, they learn lots of words that mean the things that they see, feel, hear, see, taste, touch, all of that stuff, usually one by one in a late talker. And it all depends on how they learned that vocabulary. But the good news, like I said, is that kids who are older than 5, as long as they have been hearing, have been exposed and probably have memorized a ton of words, more than 100, most of the time more than 1,000. Even if they're using fewer than 10, they likely have a vocabulary of hundreds of words in their head. But there's a disconnect between how to use these words functionally, because the big problem is the other end of the spectrum. And that your child who's already 5, 6, or older years old, they are already set in their habits because their nonverbal communication has been perpetuating and developing now for their entire life. Your kid comes out of the womb starting nonverbal communication with their very first cry. I'm uncomfortable and life is new for me. Right the very second they start communicating with their crying. Nonverbal or late talkers who remain stuck in nonverbal have just refined this language from that very first cry to whatever they're using now. And the older your child is, the more refined and set that language structure has become, because your child has taught you how to understand their nonverbal communication, and you have learned intuitively by watching your child's behavior what they are communicating. So it's been a combination joint effort where everyone has been working really hard actually to build this nonverbal language system. And the older your child is, the more stuck you can be in those systems. All right, so we've got one real positive thing in that your child does have a lot of language. And the negative thing is it's stuck in there because they don't know how to use it functionally, because everybody in their world is working on this nonverbal language system. So Now I have a 4-step process because I know people like step-by-steps in how to overcome these situations. And this is what it is. These are general steps that everybody has to go through in order, right? You can't go to step 4 before you do step 1. This is a sequential step-by-step process you need to use to get your older child to start to talk. All right. So, number 1, understanding what we have done before, and we understand that your child is stuck in their nonverbal communication systems. The number 1 reason for the disconnect between the vocabulary that's stuck inside and the vocabulary that comes out, it all comes down to listening with your ears and your brain, listening and processing spoken language. This is the skill that older late talkers who remain stuck in nonverbal patterns, this is the skill that they are missing. The number 1 skill, they all are missing it because these children, older children who have refined nonverbal communication, they can get everybody to understand them with their face, with their body, with their gestures. Some of them have learned to write and point to letterboards and exactly what they want. They have learned how to do it already in their own language, right? So here's the thing. They're not used to listening because they're also learning with their nonverbal systems. They're using their visual system to watch you, and they're picking out and relating the words they have memorized to connect the visual pictures in their brain with what they are wanting to communicate. And the only way they know how to do it is maybe they'll say a few of the words that they have memorized because they've learned that the behavior of saying a word will get somebody to deliver that thing to them. So they say cookie to get cookies because they did it before. It worked before. When they said the word cookie, you gave them a cookie. And so they're going to do that again. And that's how nonverbal language develops. But all of that is stuck because and perpetuating because the child is not listening to what you want to say. So the first thing, the first step you must do is you have to get your child to listen to you. And it's easy enough to get your child to listen to you when you think about the things that you eagerly want to listen to. What do you want to focus on hearing people say? If you think about your own self, when you really think hard about that, it is the things that you enjoy. You want to hear your kids talk about their day. You want to hear your mom talk about when she made that favorite recipe, but you don't want to hear your mom talk about when she made that favorite recipe 500 times. Like, you liked it the first time, but you don't want to hear that talking over and over again. And late talking kids have heard it all if they're older than 5 years old. That's how they memorized all the words they know. They have been listening to you. They just don't know how to connect those words because they're either not interested. There's only 2 reasons that children don't listen and focus and learn, not just hear you, right? The reason that a child will respond to their name sometimes and other times not. When they'll respond to their name when you say it's time, Joey, it's time to come eat. Or, Hakeem, come, let's go outside. They'll listen to their name when it's connected with another word they like they'll hear Hakeem, blah, 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 outside, or, Joey, blah, 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 dinner. and they're hearing those things and they're using their physical responses to respond to those things. So this is how it goes. So, hey, Sharon, thank you for joining me today. We're talking about older, late talking kids. And so the first step is to get your child to listen to you. And the two reasons the kids do not want to listen is they don't like what's being said, because it's making them feel a certain way that they don't want to feel: bored, annoyed, angry. They don't like those words because they're not curious enough to want to listen hard. They're either afraid of them or not wanting to start. And then the other reason is that the situation is too challenging. Like someone who's trying to listen to a conversation with someone and it's a very noisy room. Eventually, you'll give up listening to that person if it's just too noisy around you. So if your late talking child who's older than 5 years old is distracted by whatever in their environment, then they're not going to listen to you either. And they could be distracted by even something that's inside of themselves, their uncomfortableness. Maybe they don't like the sweater they're wearing, or, there's a bad smell, or who knows, whatever is distracting your child away from the words. They either consciously avoid them because the words make them feel a certain way that they don't want to feel, or they avoid them because they're not helpful. They aren't benefiting from the information. It's coming at them too fast. Even if you are talking in a quiet room, this could be a problem if your speech is too fast, garbled. If you're using more than one language at one time, this can happen with kids. If you're talking to them and other people at the same time. Many late talkers, about 20% actually, of children in the planet have a slower auditory processing. And if they're already stuck in a habit of visual learning and your speech is too fast, they're going to miss it. So even in a quiet room, your speech could be as beneficial as them trying to hear you in a crowd. Okay? So that's what you have to do. Number one is teach your kids how to listen to you. Make your speech interesting and attractive and basic and simple enough and interesting enough that they want to listen to you, that they will try and consciously put their focus on your speech. You must get this one level of achievement before you go on to any other steps. So think right now about how much your child is listening to you when you're talking. Are they catching every third word, or do they hear every single thing you're saying? And think about the times with your older child when you know it is important for your child to understand what you're telling them or asking them to do. You change your talking in those moments. You stop, you talk more slowly, you make sure your child is looking at you or whatever. And if you don't do that, then your child is missing them. Because you know when your child is listening to you, they look at you and smile. If they're looking away, if they've got a face that is not happy, then they are avoiding listening to you. You need to have easy, happy, safe, and fun in this environment to trigger this listening. Step number one for older late talkers. It's the same step for every late talker, but older kids have these both massive positive and massive negative situations that elevate the situation. Now, the reality is, once you do this, once you get your child listening, they talk faster than the little guys because of that positive aspect, right? A child older than 5 has memorized hundreds of words. When they start to hear language models and listen carefully to all the words you are saying without any pressure to say them. That's the other caveat. You must eliminate the pressure. Otherwise, your child's not going to want to listen to you in the first place. Remember, swapping the prompting is your number one strategy to get your child to even want to be in the same room with you, let alone listen to every single word you are saying, right? So you got to get them to join you and listen to you before you can move on. And then when they do, when they do start to listen, you will spontaneously start to hear words, but you do have to move on to the next step. And step number 2 is that you have to model the words that they want to say. Because when your child starts to practice their talking and say those words that are already in their head, that's how you know what it is. You can't test them. You can't go back to testing once you get them to listen, because you'll push them right back away again and they'll stop listening. They have to continually listen. And remember, if they're not good at listening, then they're not good at understanding why the language even exists, and let alone how it's used. So an older child must hear you saying a lot of really good language models in order for them to pick up the language. Because if they're still not hearing it, not listening, I mean hearing and listening, if they're not focused on what you're saying and hanging on every word, then if they're a nonverbal kiddo, they're missing 99% of it. They're just missing it. And you're talking to air. You're wasting your breath. So it's worth the effort for you to slow down and take a second whenever you talk to your older late talker and think about how you are talking. Are you saying words, even if they're the most beautiful words ever? I love you. I love you. Are you saying them in a way that your child is perceiving some kind of emotion from you that they don't like? Maybe it's intimidating. It's like your favorite uncle who wants to come give you hugs and kisses, but it's too much for you. Is it too much for your child? Is it too little for your child? How are you talking to them? Making sure that you are talking carefully enough turns their spontaneous talking into better, functional, useful spontaneous talking. Because now, instead of just catching the words that they memorized, they're hearing every single phrase spoken together, spoken nicely from you in a way that they are receptive and listening to. And if your child is listening and you are talking about the things that they want to say, not the things that he can say cookie, now he has to say cookie. You never have expectations of your child to talk, because your expectations are your words. You want to help your child understand. So when they do something, they bring you something, they show you something, that's when you talk about that thing. And also talk about what you are doing, because that's what kids want to talk about too. Look at dad, he's so silly. Look at my friend, or look at the show, or look at this thing. This is how you learn to share. Share about yourself. Look at me. I have yellow hair. I have new glasses today. Whatever. Talk about yourself to your child in careful talking, because this is how they get the examples of the words that they should say. Right? So let's see who else is joining me. Hanumant, hi, and Kurman, and Ethio says, all right, Ethio, I see your question and we're going to get there. As soon as I get past these next steps, I've got 2 more steps with these older late talkers that I want to help you with. And these strategies work for everybody. So step 1 is get them listening. Step 2 is model the words they want. Step 3 is watch for their response to your language models. Watch for their response. When you do talk to them, look at how they are responding to you. Sorry, I said it 3 times because it's so important that you take the time to understand how your child is reacting, because again, that's how you get 1 and 2 going, right? If you do understand that when you're talking, your child is going away from you, then just stop talking, because you're wasting your time, and follow your child and find out what they are interested in. Otherwise, you're not going to get their attention. It's going to be a struggle, and you're pulling them away from what they want to do. Now, again, if you are talking to your child about the things that they like, if they are playing in water or they're playing with trains or they're doing whatever, and they are listening to you, then you should be talking about the things that are make them smile and make them look at you and engage with you and want you to talk more, because they need to hear you talk more. You need to provide these language models that they missed when they weren't listening to you. It's just like learning any new activity. You have to put in practice with it to get good at it. Kids are not good listeners. Remember, these older kids got big habits of visual learning. They will, especially in times of trouble, if they're emotional, they'll always slip back to nonverbal, always, especially at first, until they get confident and good at listening to you and trusting that you're not going to try to teach them something, that you're just modeling nice language about the world. That's when they're like, tell me more, teach me more. And this is the response you're looking for. If your child's going away from you, then you're not presenting language that they are interested in. You've got expectations buried behind that in your blockages. That's where you need to look at your habits and think about your expectations, because this is triggering natural spontaneous language. Natural spontaneous language is not prompted by definition, right? If you prompt it, it's yours. All of it. You can teach your kids things by prompting, but not how to use natural spoken language. That has to come out of them by self. You offer opportunities to do that. So you can't offer opportunities if your child is running away from you. So step 3 is watch for the response and gauge it. So if your child is going away from you, change it up right then to get your child back. Be attractive again. Reel them back in like a fishing pole to get them in, to keep you, to get them back to listening, because if they go away, you got to go back to square one, because you cannot move forward through these steps unless they are in order. Child listening, child focused on the words they want to say, because again, how are they going to learn to use these words unless they're modeled for them? Say the words that they would say and you watch for their response. And then the last one is that you have to change your models to hear when they try to talk, right? You're going to hear what's missing. So if you are modeling, you want a cookie, I will give you a cookie. And the child gets the cookie and they say cookie, right? So you know they've caught that, but they've missed the whole rest of it. Say it again, because they missed it the first time. So you have to provide those models again. And while you're there in the moment, have their attention. You got your cookie. Child says cookie. Isn't it a nice cookie? And whatever your child is doing with it, yummy, you munch that cookie. You took a big bite. That cookie is delicious. I want to eat a cookie too. These kinds of talking about the things your child has right when they get it, with expansive language, words they want to say. This is the trick to get your kids interested in listening to more language from you. That's how it works, right? This 4-step process, but it must happen in order, and it must happen this way for all children. But older kids, they make the jump. Once they start listening, they make the jump really fast to start to say words because they've already got them in there. Little kids don't make the jump this fast. They need to spend a lot of time listening because even their nonverbal communication systems are not as refined, right? They don't know about patterns and inflection and all of that like older kids do, because they have been listening to you speak 1 or maybe 2 languages in your home. Which gets me to the next question. All right, let's take a look at what some people are saying here. So Sharon says, hi, and I totally agree with you, but she is echolalic. So she repeats everything, and sometimes she gives the answer if she remembers, or no answer, just the repetition. Okay, so that's one issue, is echolalia, which is a whole different reason that your child's language is blocked. echolalia in itself is a nonverbal communication pattern, right? So your child who is echolalic is, remember, they're learning from you how to use nonverbal communication or how to use any communication. So at some point, your child started using echolalic phrases to be able to communicate. And you started talking, and your child learned that you are a source. It's really good, actually, that your child learns that you're actually a source for this communication, that you're a source, that you are a person who they can get to say words. And they might be getting you to say words for them for entertainment value. Maybe they like how you read a story, or they like because they're making you replace the videos they want to read. This is a nonverbal communication. You have to understand what is the meaning behind these echolalic phrases. And with language facilitation, we're shifting every nonverbal communication into verbal speech. So if your child's nonverbal, but they're already using words, you have to think about, how did they learn this language? How did they learn the words that got in their head? Where did they hear it from? They had to hear it from somewhere. And what were they focused on while they were hearing that word? Was it an entertainment situation, or was it something that was required that was tested afterwards? So like in therapies, for example, your child is tested constantly. What is this? What is this? Find the whatever, show me the thing, say XYZ, do this, say this, do this, say this in therapy. And at some point, hopefully, gosh, I hope, the therapist had modeled or demonstrated ultimately what they want your child to do. They provide a demonstration. This is nose. It's my nose. Touch my nose. They do a lot of demonstration. And then later they go, okay, Joey, where's your nose? And then he touches his nose. Great job. You did it. So they're rewarding the work of the learning, task, right? So that's one way kids learn words, is by imitating what people say. So let's say your child's everyday life is full of that. And there's lots of, when you do this, this happens. When you say this, this happens. But there's very little opportunity for your child to learn to communicate other things, like, I don't want to do this right now, or I just would rather be watching Frozen, or, whatever. There's no opportunity, no structure in place for that kind of communication. So what does your child use? They use what they know. They use what they've memorized. So they stick those echolalic phrases in there, just like the other 100 vocabulary words that they picked up and learned to use as a communication tool, as a vocabulary shtick word. It might be a whole song. And just singing the tone, it could be even the tone of the song. When they start to sing the word frozen, that means that they want to go in their bed and snuggle with you. Even though it has nothing to do with the movie Frozen, it just happened because one time you were in their bed snuggling with them watching the movie, and that triggered them to be a language bit. And somehow they tested it out. That's what kids who have used echolalia do. They're like, that worked one time. Let me try again. And they do it again. And because they're already looking for patterns in communication, they learn that their echolalia is language. This is how powerful you are as a parent, that you can reinforce this echolalic language to the point where they're communicating with tones and songs and stuff that has no relation to what they're doing, because you're so good at guessing the underlying message. And you just do it. You just help them conform without teaching them the language they need for that stuff. And that's what happens, Sharon, with every child who's echolalic. So your child isn't even listening to talking yet, because she's just hearing what she wants to hear. She's just matching the vocabulary that's already in there. If you want her to learn new vocabulary, you have to go backwards and start from square one. and get her listening to you use the speech and language that you want her to use during the times that she hears you talking already every day, to practice and get good at listening. So while you're getting dressed, you should be talking about the things that you are doing and that she is doing in language that she needs. Now, families, these are general strategies I can do on these videos. This is the best I can do, but this is why it all comes back to analysis of and uncovering the blockages. And the blockages are all set in these two things. Your kiddo has memorized words that they're already stuck in their own language, and they're so good at nonverbal communication. They've taught you how to be their receptors and their translators, because nobody else can understand these nonverbal communication or echolalia, and everybody in their therapy world is trying to make them comply to the world. Like, you have to say these phrases. So therapists and teachers will always have expectations of teaching kids specific phrases to do specific purposes. But those are all 100% of them behaviors. They help kids use those behavior of I want a cookie instead of climbing the cabinet, because that's somehow more appropriate way to non-verbally ask for a cookie. It's just using words as a request. It's not a conversation. You develop it into conversational, spontaneous talking with those 4 steps I talked about earlier. So that's what the deal is about it. So the ethos, so the next question that's coming up is has a 4-year-old. Ethos says, any suggestions how I can help my 4-year-old bilingual learn to talk? And sorry, Sharon says, wow, I got it now. I understand why she says irrelevant words when she's overwhelmed, right? When she's overwhelmed, she doesn't have access to the things that she needs because she doesn't know those words. She hasn't memorized them. So she's making up something, because kids don't stop wanting you to know their deepest, darkest feelings. They start, like I said, from the second they come out of you, knowing how to do this. And that's what's really, really important. So, hey, by the way, there's more people watching me. Thank you so much for watching me today. If you give this video a like, that will help me out a lot. And I love the engagement of people who are posting questions. Now is the time to go ahead and post your question. And if you're watching this on the replay, talking so fast, I'm so excited. If you're watching this on the replay, please feel free to continue to post questions in the comments, because my team follows these videos and I respond to all the questions on a follow-up email or follow-up channel. So Sharon says, yay, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're watching. All right, so Ethio says, let me have a little drink. I just love these live Q&As. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. Sorry. So Ethio says, suggestions about a 4-year-old bilingual late talker. So these 4-step strategies are really important, but there are a couple tips about bilingual kids, and I do talk about them in other videos. So that's the one thing I want to tell you is if I have a bilingual household and a late talker, there are a few videos. I just did one this past week with lots of Q&A on it over on Facebook, and that's posted here on YouTube and also on Facebook. And there are some videos, if you go to my channel right here on my Waves of Communication channel in the search engine and search my channel for bilingual, you will see videos with step-by-step strategies to work with those as well, because language facilitation in bilingual families does have a few tricks that will help you with the process. Excuse me. Sorry, don't mean to cough at you. It's so loud in this microphone too. All right. And so the bilingual strategies are, the number one is that you should only speak one language at a time. You can speak more languages in your household, but don't mix languages in the same activity. If you're going to have bath time, speak bath time, all your bath time vocabulary and throughout the whole experience in one language. And when you leave the bathroom, you can start talking another language. That's okay, as long as everybody is speaking the same language. Sorry, I'm having terrible problems with this. I'm going to mute my mic for a second because it's really loud. Okay. Whew, sorry about that. Had to free up some stuff there. All right, now let's see. So Sharon says, I'm glad that you got some suggestions moving forward about that. Now, there is another question that I got from somebody else on my YouTube last week from Karan, which is a great question for this topic because it is about pronouns. And a lot of older late talkers, this is kind of what happens. They might start to use sentences, and that's what Karan said. Even his child is doing well and starting to use some talking, and even making sentences, but mixing up the pronouns. So the way you teach pronouns is not to teach them. It seems a little counterproductive, but it's very difficult for a child to consciously understand I versus you. So the best way to demonstrate these pronouns is by modeling them in pretend play situations where you are talking for a character. So if your child likes superhero guys, have these guys engage in conversation about the superhero things they do. Hey, guy, I think you have a big sword or whatever. Wow, thank you. My sword is yellow. It's magical. So they're using you and my, and then have your characters demonstrate those things is a lot of good way to do it. So use pronouns also in your pretend play demonstration mixed in with the proper name too. So you say, hey, Iron Man, you are a very good flyer. That kind of thing. So you're giving compliments and you're using pronouns, and that's how your child is going to focus and listen to those sentences over and over again. You also want to talk a lot about your own experiences using pronouns mixed in with proper nouns as well. So you can say, I am talking on YouTube today, and, Miss Marcy really likes to talk on YouTube. So that's kind of the way that you are going to model both personal pronouns and proper names so that your child will understand how they are used functionally in a sentence. You can't teach pronouns in isolation. It's part of a sentence that makes the sentence change its meaning. Because if we say go to the store and we replace I versus you, it depends on who has to get our shoes on and go outside, right? Those pronouns change the meaning of a whole situation. And you should teach them in combination with verbs. So if your child is using verbs, then it's easy to teach pronouns in pretend play. And you don't have to pretend play with characters. You can pretend play with yourself. You can say, I am Iron Man and I want to fly. You are Superman and you can fly too. Those kinds of phrases. This is how you work on, that's how you work on pronouns. So there's Karam joining me. Thanks for joining me today. So there is the answer to your question about working with pronouns. And pretend play and modeling, because this 4-step process, get your child to listen, model the words they want to say in ways that they can respond, that they are responding, that they are looking for, and continuing to change and provide the things they're missing. So if your child is only using the wrong pronoun, and that's kind of what you do whenever your child is trying to talk and they use incorrect sentence structure or articulation or anything like that, the best way to do it is, again, use this same process, but go back to listening and make sure that you are modeling words carefully and slowly enough so that your child can pick up every part of the word. And that's another question that a lot of parents of older late talkers have. They start to talk and they might even start to combine words, but every word has a part of it chopped off, or and they're missing most of the consonants and everything's vowels, all of that. The way that you teach all of these skills to your child is by what's called recasting. So if your child, that they're missing because your child is trying to talk, they say cooey instead of cookie, then instead of saying, oh, that's not correct, you say, oh, you said key. There's a noise in the middle of it. Key. That's how you do it. Key. And you don't ask your child to say it again. You just do it. Key. And then you move on. But you make an emphasis about it and you say it slowly and a little bit more loudly so that your child definitely calls attention to it. But you don't call enough, let them know they did it wrong. You just find an opportunity to use the correct way to say that pronoun, word, phrase, whatever. How should your child have said it? And you can always preface that by, oh, you said the alligator is swimming under the bridge. Even if that's not how it perfectly came out, if that was the intent behind it and you got a lot of gobbledygook, but that's what it is, that's what you say, because that's how you model the words your child wants to say. They're trying to say something. They're not very good at it because they're late talkers. You give them a model for, oh, you wanted to say that. That is how you say it, and move on. Don't belabor the point. Don't do it because your kid's already good at listening because you've done number one. You've got your child already listening to you. And if your child's walking away from you while you're trying to do this, then you're wasting your breath because you haven't done number one. You have to move up through all of these phases. That's how it goes. So, yep, good. Thanks, Karam. He says, thanks, ma'am. Now I will stop teaching in pronouns. Yep, stop teaching everything. No memorization, no flashcards. If whatever your child is doing or whatever you're trying to do, to teach your child. If you're trying to do what the speech therapist said, if there's worksheets, if there's homework, if there's, I don't know, if you're making up homework or whatever, especially with your older kiddos, I promise you, they know more in their head than those worksheets are teaching them. But you're just blocking the whole process by just band-aiding and trying to get them to do these behaviors because that's when you are expecting your child to produce something for you. And your expectation. There is a right answer. If there is a right answer in your head, then it's your expectation of that right answer. When we're facilitating natural, spontaneous spoken language with children, especially older children, they see through the teaching so fast. Before you even get the toy or book off the shelf, they're leaving the room. You don't even have to say a word, and they see these teaching coming. That's a blockage. You need to stop it, all of it. And you need to replace it with something else that your child is interested in listening to. So even the parents who make the decision to stop doing school, teaching, whatever, for 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time, if you're really brave, right? And spend that 3 weeks' time doing only the things that your child wants to do. If your child loves going to the mall, go to the mall every day. Ride on the bus. Get in a taxi. Ride the public transport. Go shopping and buy one thing at the store every day if that's what your child loves to do. If that's all your child loves to do, you need to dig around and find more. You need to find the things that your child does want to do with their own time and adapt that because you're trying to teach at levels 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 before you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 even started, and that's why it's not working for you in your home, if that's what's going on. I mean, the whole reason you're watching this video, right, is because what you're trying to do in your house isn't working and you're looking for an alternative, something else to do that's going to get you results. And let's just think about spoken language moving forward as something that your child really wants to do. And if you're blocking the process with your expectations of them saying what you think they should be saying, the process will be held up indefinitely. You must change this situation first in order to get your kids to move forward. And that's how it works. And it happens remarkably fast with late talkers who are older. I mean, the same day, especially if your kid's older than 7 or 8, right? They have so much vocabulary in there and they're so good at communicating with you. As soon as you show them how to use words for the things they already are communicating, words are so much easier. So they're going to do it intentionally. That's what humans are wired for. Your kids want to talk. They need you to teach them. And that's what I'm here for, is to help everybody do it. Now, listen, if you want to get how to work with me, okay? So there are many ways. These YouTube videos, these live Q&As are just the icing on the cake. And really, they are more supplemental than some of the other avenues that I have for you to learn. So if you are watching me for the first time or you just started watching videos, then please go to my website. I just redesigned it, by the way. New year for 2020. I just redesigned everything so it's much easier to navigate. And on my website, wavesofcommunication.com, you can access all of the resources. It's the hub for everything. The independent study course, the book, the free class, the review, the parent reviews, so you can see how other people did it. There are blog posts over there. There is a link to get over to Facebook so that you can see the daily posts over there. Everything is there. So wavesofcommunication.com, you can remember it because I always do the wave like that. And we work with energy, we work for communication, we work with family feelings. All of that is the energy of the planet. And that's what I use to help parents use your intuition to help your child. So these free resources. And then here on YouTube, there are 200 channels. If you look at it on a desktop, it's a big array of beautiful videos that I just was looking at it with my team today. And we were really proud of the fact that we have put out so many resources. If you're afraid about misdiagnosis, if your therapist is giving you strategies you're not happy with, if your child has ear infections or a history of ear infections, if they have aggressive behaviors, if they're older, like this one, if you want strategies to work with, like demonstration, go to the tip of the week strategies, the language facilitation tips playlist. There are dozens of videos full of these step-by-step strategies to get through whatever is going on. And if there is a video that you haven't seen in there, if you go through this channel and there's a topic that you are interested in, that's when these live Q&As, you bring me a question, and I might even make a whole video about it, like I did this one, because there are many, many parents who have late talking kids who are older, who are told by professionals, doctors, people with lots of letters behind their names and years and years of experience. Parents are told that their children are not wired. Once kids get past 6 years old, it's all over and all of that stuff. And here's the that happens. It happens because those people are set in their ways of teaching memorization method of language. And it breaks down for children past 6 for 2 reasons. Number one, as kids get to be 6 years old, their memories aren't as good as they are when they're little. They can't process and bring in all the new information like they can when they're 2 and 3 and 4. Our brains come out just like putty. Even the as you get older and learn more, they grow and develop and new pathways are developed. And that's why it's all like a cottage cheese up there looking, because all those new avenues and bends, they grow constantly in a brain, and an older person's brain is much more sophisticated and refined. Someone who uses and develops those strategies than a baby who's just, they don't know anything yet. So you start learning from the very second, even before you're born, you start to learn things. So this is what's important with language facilitation, is that we work with the systems that your child has, that you get the information that you need. Block this natural process that already exists. And people who have older kids, doctors or whatever, who are trying to teach older kids these same old ways, memorize one bit of language for each visual thing, that breaks down because number one, it's super boring because people say the same thing over and over again, and all they're doing is expecting kids to say words, so they tap out. By the time a kid is 7 years old, they want to be running around and exploring the world, not sitting doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Little kids tolerate it, big kids do not. And that's why ABA always breaks down for the older kids. It's good for them when they're little, but the older kids learn to manipulate those people outside of all of that stuff. So if your child hates going to their school, if they fight you every day to go there, then it's time to think about a change, because unless you do, these blockages will continue. And it may seem like there's no solutions out there, but that is not true. If you think about it, just the things that I've told you on this video alone can help you with your late talker start to want to engage more, listen more, and when they listen more, they will talk more. And when they talk, they can do anything. They can go to school with other kids and learn in a group and graduate high school and all of that stuff. That's what's necessary, right? You can't get there with a list of memorized words. You can't. You just never will. And kids who are, getting tablet systems, they spend years learning to develop in these levels and moving from screen to try to find this massive vocabulary, because how can you possibly program a computer system to use artificial intelligence and to even use someone? It's not like your late talker is unable to think of ideas. They've got all their own ideas. They just don't have the language for it. And it's impossible for a computer to keep up with everything. Behaviors will always sneak in, and kids don't like it. So here's the thing. You can do it. It's easier than you think. Parents all over the world are doing it. I have lots and lots of parents in my program who have kids who are older. So if you are in that situation and you just don't know what to do, start digging in and watch these videos. Go to the free class on my website, and listen. You can work with me and I can help you get your kiddo starting to use language in weeks, not months or years, by helping you go through. I can find all the blockages and tell you what you need to do to make these changes, because I know exactly what it takes. I've done it hundreds of times. So this is where it goes. If you want to work with me, wavesofcommunication.com. If you don't have the resources, financial resources to work with me as a paid client, here's the back way to do it. Get my book. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun. Teach your child to talk faster than speech therapy. The step-by-step process on how to uncover blockages is in this book, step by step. It's available on paperback, like you see. Also, Kindle and Audible on Amazon. So you can check it out over there. It's available all over the world in one form or another. And this step-by-step process is a good way started. Also in this book, it explains how to use these online resources. Also in my course, my independent study course, it's only $500. It's $450 for one more week. You get, it's only one more week is the sale, and you also get a free consultation. But on the 20th, it goes back to $500 and you're back to independent study. But the resources are there in the book and the online course, and how to help you use my daily consultations and find me on these Q&As and enhance what's there so that you can apply these things in your home. Because I want every parent on the planet to be able to help your late talking child learn to use the words they need, because they have wisdom we need to know. They're our next generation, and they've got brilliance that we need to understand. And we want to hear all of it. So it's your job as moms and dads, and it's my jobs to help you. So I hope that you benefited from this video and you decide to take the next step in your learning. If you head out to my website and read a blog, if you watch one more video on this YouTube channel, take the Swapping the Prompting Challenge, look for the Get Started with Language Facilitation Resources playlist. You can see a bunch of stuff there. Get the book, go ahead and buy it and start to read and figure out how to do it. You can access even free parts of the book on Amazon. You can download it, like the first 5 minutes. It talks about why I wrote it and what's in it and all of that stuff. So there are resources, and make a commitment to yourself this year. This is the time for change. This is the time to do something new with your older late talker. If you're stuck, if your child's past 4 years old, and you're not seeing progress consistently all the time, then there are blockages in the way. They're bigger than you think. You need to uncover them, and I can help you. So use the resources in my page, and then you can get there. All right. I want to try to keep this as close to an hour as possible. I know I ramble on over and over again. Just checking in, everybody. So Ethio says, I watched the free class and it was amazing. Good. Now, yeah, great. So thanks everybody who's joining me today. I'm so glad to have you on, and I will be back next Monday at noon, same exact time. I know it's later over there in India and evening for you, but this is the time for you to go ahead and get some free coaching from me. So if you have questions, post them here and I'll get to them next one. And I will be doing a Thursday episode of Q&A over on Facebook at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So you can join me over there as well and see lots of replays all through. So scroll through this channel and find a bunch of replays. If you're watching me on Facebook, scroll through my Facebook page. There are new information every day, and I've been doing it for 2 years. So you can scroll until you're tired of reading about language facilitation. There is so much information right there for you. So I hope you can get started and get going, and I'll see you all on my next Q&A. Have a great week, everybody. Bye for now.